a lot of myths, and I'm just doing a few common ones that we get every year. And a lot of these you see online, you see different things. So here is one. My potato is growing tomatoes. So tomatoes and potatoes are in the solanaceous family, so they are related. But we get confused sometimes when we think about potatoes because what we eat is a modified storage system that's underground, that tuber. And we forget that that's not actually the seed of the potato or the fruit of the potato. So they do produce these little green that look like green tomatoes. However, they are not edible. You do not want to eat those. And when weather conditions are right, we tend to see more of this some years than others. So that is one of the garden myths that I commonly hear, that somebody will call in or bring in and say their potatoes is growing tomatoes. So they do not cross. It does not work that way. That is just actually the fruiting structure of the potato. Another common myth: my cucumber crossed with my melon. Basically, you typically get that when they say they cut their cantaloupe or their muskmelon and it just didn't taste good. It tastes more like a cucumber. So if I had them both in my garden, they must have crossed. It doesn't work like that either. They are actually in two different groups. They are both in the cucurbit family, the vining crop family, but they cannot cross with each other. Nor can they cross with a pumpkin or a watermelon. Those are all different families. So typically the reason for a cantaloupe that might taste more cucumber-like is a specific variety. It could also be weather conditions and if they are ripe or not. So that is another reason to make sure you know when your melon is ripe and look at different varieties. Another common myth, and this one's on the internet a lot, is blossom end rot can be cured by adding Epsom salts. Blossom end rot is a physiological disorder, which basically means it's a calcium deficiency that is brought on by weather conditions typically. Typically, our soils have enough calcium. It's just that sometimes it's not readily available to the plant. So typically, a lot of times these are on the first tomatoes that everybody is waiting anxiously for them to ripen. And all of a sudden you realize that it has a bad spot on the blossom end. So if you pull those off, the weather changes and we actually have nice tomatoes the next time because the plant can pick up calcium. Epsom salts don't work because they're actually magnesium. So that has nothing to do with the calcium deficiency. And sometimes if we get too much magnesium in the soil, that can limit the availability of other elements in the soil. So the number one thing to do is do a soil test and check. And also remember to keep water even and those environmental conditions as best we can. And that helps prevent blossom end rot. And the last myth we're just going to talk about today, this one, I still see it sometimes on Facebook. A few years ago, it got shared a lot. They're touting this as a food fact that the lobes of the pepper are the difference between male and female, and one is sweeter than the other. This is false. Peppers don't have a gender. Peppers have perfect flowers. Our flowers are what can be gender specific. We do have plants that are separate male and female. Typically, we see that in our woody species more so than others. Like hollies have male and female separate if you want berries. The berries are on the female, but you have to have a male to pollinate. Peppers have perfect flowers, so they have male and female parts on the same flower. So they are self-fertile, they pollinate themselves. This is just a different growth mechanism or shaping in peppers. There are also peppers that have 5 lobes or 2 lobes. So all of those things are natural. As far as flavor goes, a lot of that depends on weather and variety. And a lot of people don't realize that green bell peppers are actually immature. If you leave them on the plant, they actually will turn a color depending on variety. A lot of times it's red. But if they turn that color, they are actually mature and they will have a sweeter flavor. So if you're interested in sweeter flavored peppers, wait until they mature or look at some of the different varieties because there are so many different varieties of peppers out there.